Irashaimase. Hello and welcome to Fitaurus Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fitaurus, bringing you the Chef's Choice in weekly gaming news. Today for November 30th, 2015. So we do have a little bit of news today, so let's get cooking and find out what they are. So at the top of today's menu, we go and have a news article about Sony and the PSP. Specifically, earlier in the week, Sony Computer Entertainment Japan went and announced that they were going to be discontinuing the Sony PlayStation Store on the PSP as of March 31st, 2016. So what this means is you'll no longer be able to go and buy new DLC and new games directly on the PSP, but you will be able to go and directly download previously purchased titles through the PSP. But fear not, you still will be able to go and access, at least for the time being, titles for the PSP via the PlayStation 3 store, as well as the online store that Sony has as well. This is kind of an interesting thing to go and note, as it seems like they're going and starting to draw down even further what's left of the PSP itself. So the end of that system is, well, it's been discontinued for a while, but it looks like they're starting to go and pull back even server support for the titles. So it's definitely sad to go and see such a popular and really good system overall go and finally meet its end, but all good things have to come to an end. In addition to this, they also went and announced that they're going and discontinuing the UMD passport program at the same time as well. So the UMD passport program allowed you to go and register UMDs that you went and had with the PlayStation Network, and then you could go and buy a discounted digital copy of that title to go and play on the PSP or the Vita, which is the primary point of the system, is to be able to go and play your UMD titles on your Vita. It didn't necessarily include all the titles that were available for the PSP, but there were quite a few, and the price was relatively minimal to go and re-download it once you'd registered the UMD. So it was definitely nice, and it's sad to go and see the program come to an end. But that's alright, because we still go and have plenty of future left in the PlayStation family. And this next news piece for Sony is also a part of that. So in addition to going in that piece of news earlier, there was a little tidbit of news. Really, this one was just based off of a tweet from Sony's Vice President of Worldwide Studios, Shuhei Yoshida, who basically stated that they were going and working on an official remote play app for the PC/Mac. There really wasn't any details going and given, so maybe we'll go and actually get a little bit more news about this at the upcoming PlayStation Experience coming up this weekend about such an app. So we have no idea what the app will go and entail, whether it'll go and be something you can go and access remotely, or if it has to go and be on the same house network. But it's definitely interesting that they're going and supporting PlayStation 4 to PC streaming, as that's something that the Xbox One also already goes and does, is Xbox to Windows 10 streaming already. So I'm looking forward to going and seeing what news goes and develops of that, but I honestly don't think it's a feature I would go and use. But you never know. Maybe it will be something I would go and make use of. So moving on to our next item on the menu. This one's a little bit of a controversial one. So actually starting last week, somebody went and posted on Koei Tecmo's Dead or Alive game Facebook page about asking if there was any news about bringing Dead or Alive Extreme 3 to the United States and Europe. And they went and got a response from a community manager going and basically stating that there were no plans to go and bring Extreme 3 to the West, like, period. There didn't leave any room for any interpretation or like even future plans to go and do so. Then when further down in the replies about that, the original poster went and asked for why, and did go and get a response. Basically, the community manager went and left a response along the lines about just issues going in the game industry regarding female treatment in video games. Probably going and referring to the whole Gamergate feminist movement that's been going on for the last year and a half or so. And, well, this whole incident's kind of blown up to, well, rather like silly proportions, really, as it seems natural enough for companies to go and exclude releases from one territory to the next just based off of how to go and say standards of the area. But at the same time, I thought we'd kind of gotten past that. And in a lot of ways, you have to go and question, is the violence that's pervasive in video games like in the West is like bad as any form of like sexuality, which is really better to go and have in a video game. Well, anyway, that's a discussion for maybe a different day. The whole reply was also backed up by Koei Tecmo Europe's Twitter going and basically applauding the community manager for going and telling the truth, and then going and prompting people if they were interested in going and obtaining the game in English to go and import a copy, since the Asia version is supposed to go and have English on it. But still, it is interesting to go and note that Koei Tecmo is going and sidestepping the whole issue of female treatment in video games by not releasing the title outside of the Japanese Asian territories. In a way, like a form of censorship, but I think it might go and be one of the most diplomatic and simple ways to go and respond to this kind of an issue. And so we'll have to go and see. As for myself, I'm undecided on if I'll go and pick up the title or not, but maybe with all the controversy, I might just simply go and look into it just based off of that alone. Moving on to a couple other items from Koei Tecmo that they went and announced this week. So they did also go and announce an upcoming, well, shouldn't be really a surprise, as they have done so with the last several Tillier titles, but they went and announced Tillier Sword Plus for the PlayStation Vita earlier this week. And that'll go and be coming in March with additional content and scenarios that are supposed to go and help flesh out the story and the world of not just the Tillier Sword, but the Tillier Dusk games as well as go and provide just a little bit more information to go and fill in some of those plot points that were just a little bit too light, and reworking some of the scenarios of the character interactions. So that's definitely nice to go and see that they're going and doing this. I myself have only ever really played the original games, not the Plus titles, but they've definitely always been on my radar. And they also went and gave a February release date, although not a firm release date, for the Omega Force developed Attack on Titan game, which is going and looking pretty awesome. So if you're a fan of Attack on Titan, definitely look forward to that in February in Japan, and then later in 2016 in the West. So moving on to a couple video game announcements. These ones are just miscellaneous ones. The first one is an indie announcement, actually. So Retro City Rampage developer V-Blank Entertainment earlier this week announced Shakedown Hawaii, which is basically a 16-bit sequel to the 8-bit Retro City Rampage, which is a title that I had a lot of fun with, and it can usually be obtained for pretty cheap. If you're interested in a good retro feel game, definitely give that one a look. So I'm kind of excited about this sequel, as looks to go and have more of the same fun, zany, like run around shooting action. So that one's definitely one to go and get excited about. The next one is definitely one that has a little bit of interesting history behind it. So Granzella, which had obtained the rights to the Disaster Report franchise from IREM, announced this week that they're going and bringing Disaster Report 4 plus Summer Memories to the PlayStation 4, or the Japanese title is Zettai Zetsume Toshi 4. They're going to go and be bringing that to the PlayStation 4 in 2016. So originally, this title was actually the original Disaster Report 4 was supposed to go and release on the PlayStation 3 back in 2011, but its release date was just after the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami, so the game was canceled back then, and there were definitely the possibilities, especially with IREM going and fading away, that the title would never go and see the light of day. But it looks like it's going and finally getting released, and it's going to be released on the PlayStation 4. So the Disaster Report games are supposed to go and be disaster survival type games. So I haven't played any myself, but they definitely look interesting, and it's really nice to go and see the revival of a title that many thought was dead. Then also this week, Aqua Plus went and announced that they're going to go and be releasing the final chapter of the Utawareru Mono series next September. So they just recently released Utawareru Mono, the False Mask, for the Vita, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4 back in September of this year. And so they just announced Utawareru Mono, the two Hakuoros, or, well, maybe not, let's see, plural there, but it is plural, for September of 2016. So I'm still going and hoping for a localization of the most recent Utawareru Mono, or heck, even the original Utawareru Mono. So we'll have to go and see if that goes and happens in the US. But it's still very interesting to go and see that Aqua Plus is already out there, and this apparently is going to go and be the final chapter in that series as well. So that's exciting news. Alright, and going and moving on to our last piece of news for the week, and this one might be one of the most important. Girl has reached Pluto. Yep, that's right. Nobi Nobi Girl from Nobi Nobi Boy has finally gone and reached the planet Pluto, going and opening up a new stage in the title. So for those of you who aren't familiar with it, Nobi Nobi Boy is actually a really weird stretching eating game that was created by the creator of Katamari Damacy. And the whole point is you go and stretch and shrink Nobi Nobi Boy, and as you go and do this, you can go and accrue distance that you can go and add on to Girl, and Girl goes and has been expanding for years, going all the way out through the solar system, and has finally gone and reached Pluto after 6.5 years. So that's definitely an awesome community accomplishment that we've actually gone and made it there. Alright, so thank you so much for coming out and joining me today for the weekly gaming news. As always, if you go and have other news stories that you think I should go and report about, please leave those in the comments below. Or any other suggestions or comments about my news show as is. I will go and be posting my news video a little later than usual next week, as I'll go and be out of town this coming weekend. But look forward to it all the same. There should go and be, hopefully, some interesting announcements from Sony's PlayStation experience going and coming up this weekend, in addition to hopefully some other gaming news throughout the week. But once again, thank you so much for coming out and joining me today for the weekly gaming news, and I hope to go and see you again next week.